Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro, we are talking about entitlement, virtue signaling, and online bullying. Before we get started, I would like to put a call out to any businesses that are looking at how they're going to be spending marketing money for the rest of this year. What we are going to be doing is we are looking for companies that are looking to sponsor people of color in our leadership group coaching sessions. If you're interested and you would like to sponsor people to be a part of the online group coaching, please get in contact with us at support@mapitforward.org. Now, let's get on to our topic for today. It's been an interesting few days. I have had lots going on online, and I needed a few days to gather my thoughts after a lot of things that went on. And because of that, I tried to think of, what are we going to talk about on the podcast this week? And it needed to start with this topic. It needed to start with talking about entitlement and virtue signaling and online bullying for a number of reasons. Before we deep dive into that, let's talk about leadership. At the beginning of this year, when I was thinking about what this year is going to be about exploring for Map It Forward and for our audience with regards to the content that we were going to create, we decided that the theme for this year would be leadership. I could not have predicted what was coming and how important a role leadership would play in the history of our industry this year. First with COVID-19, and now with the protests that are going on as a consequence of what happened to the recent situation with George Floyd. And may he rest in peace. Today is his funeral. Now, when COVID-19 happened, we spoke about leadership and how it was important that people who are in leadership positions step up. And now, in this current situation, the same is true. But damn, are we seeing some fuckery go on in our industry right now. And we're going to unpack that in this discussion. You are not made a leader in a situation. You are made a leader throughout your life. It is a lifelong journey. And where I want to start with today's discussion, and it may be quite long, I am not going to fucking apologize for anything anymore after some of the things that have happened this weekend. We're going to start with entitlement. The reason I'm using the word entitlement as opposed to the word privilege is because I feel that the word privilege is the same as the word specialty coffee. It started off meaning something, one thing, and now it means so many things that the word is stigmatized. So I'm going to use the word entitlement to help me explore and navigate this situation with you. If you have never listened to this podcast before we dig into entitlement, welcome. It's clear to me from the attacks that I received online over the weekend that many of the people who were doing the attacking have never listened to this podcast before. And you don't know shit about me. And so I say welcome. My journey into understanding this issue of racism here in America. I'm well versed on the issue of racism in the country that I was born into because I am a direct recipient of racism in that country as an Arab woman. In this country, my journey started when I first moved here. In the first couple of months, my first black friend was a professor in counseling, and we had a conversation, and I was very confused when in the conversation, he said to me, he started saying something to the tune of like, but you have to recognize my color. And I found that a very curious statement. And I said, but I don't see your color. I'm having a conversation with you as a human, not with you as a certain skin tone. I realized at that moment when we went deep into this discussion, the racism in this country is different to the racism that in my country. So I went out to understand it. And for the last 4 years since I've lived in this country, I have consumed as much information from a diverse number of platforms, comedians, art forms, through music, through documentaries, through books, through TV shows and movies that have been written and directed by Black people, so I could get a different perspective on the different ways that Black people are telling stories so that I could better inform myself about this situation. So if you're new to this podcast and you were one of the people that was sending me all this hate mail and commenting and attacking and posting things online saying, let's take down Map It Forward, I hope that informs you a little bit better. This platform is for people who are looking to open their minds. When we say, as Map It Forward, we are all about leadership, our mission here on Map It Forward is to encourage you to think for yourself and to set an example for that. And so let's just explore these 3 things. I'm going to use personal examples because I have no business talking about other people's shit. It's not professional of me to talk about other people's experiences here. I can only talk about what I've experienced. The experiences that I am going to speak of, I want you to know that I have informed the people that are involved in these experiences that I will be talking about them today. And they're not all great experiences. So let's talk about entitlement. Let's talk about what entitlement is. There is a sense of entitlement in this industry that rears itself in many different ways, but it all comes to the same thing. This idea that I can do whatever I want because, insert whatever your sense of entitlement is, because I'm a white man, because I'm a man, because I have more money, because I have a group behind me that's telling me that I should just fuck you up because they'll back me up. It doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. Insert type of entitlement here. Again, I want to preface what I'm about to say by letting you know that I have contacted this person and told them that I'm going to talk about this. I was on the receiving end of a very famous, probably the most famous coffee personality, James Hoffmann. I was on the receiving end of, intentional or not, mass bullying because of James Hoffmann's review of my product, Elixir Specialty Coffee. James posts a video of him reviewing Elixir and it gets tens of thousands of views, over 70,000 views over the last couple of years. And entitled people within the coffee industry decide that what they're going to do is because they want to be a part of the bro club, they decide to bully me and anybody that's associated with the product. Most of them haven't even tried it. But you know what we're going to do? We can take these people down, so why not? We're going to talk about that when we talk about online bullying. Where's the entitlement here? The entitlement exists where James, who I will say I like very much, when we've had conversations, they've been delightful. But I have friends who have entitlement that they're unaware of, and James is one of them. And we've spoken about that. I've emailed him and told him that I'm going to talk about this. James didn't warn me that he was going to be posting the video so that I could prepare myself for the onslaught that was undoubtedly going to come my way. I couldn't prepare my customers. He didn't allow me to give him the context about the elixir that he had received somehow. I have no idea how he got it. He emailed me about the shipping costs that he decided to comment about and didn't talk about the response that we gave him with regards to shipping costs. Your sense of entitlement to profit off other people's pain, when you take that opportunity and don't consider other people, you don't consider how other people are going to be affected by your actions. That is entitlement. No matter where it exists. If you have the luxury or afford yourself the luxury of not considering how your actions are going to affect other people, you are behaving entitled. You are profiting off of the back of other people's situation. Some people call it privilege. I'm calling it entitlement. James made money directly off my pain. And he's extremely sorry for that now that I've pointed it out. But after what? If you guys knew the hell that I have had to go through because of that video. Now listen, it's great that you get a sorry, but at the same time, you can't turn around and say that anyone that was involved in creating that video and posting that video and has the channel doesn't read the comments and sees the hateful shit that people are writing. You can't say that when they're posting about that video on Instagram and seeing the hateful shit that people are writing about the product doesn't get seen by them. Your entitlement allows you the opportunity to ignore what your actions are doing. And I've been contacted this weekend by so many people that are saying, I don't know where to start the journey of understanding what's going on. Well, therein lies, and it's a great question because they're following up and saying, where can you recommend that I start? Your sense of entitlement in being able to ask that question means that you feel that you can just go to someone that's going to tell you what to do. I have to spend time answering that question. I have to spend time considering your perspective. And it's not that I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to help you. It's that I'm enabling you in your entitlement. If I just answer that question, I'm not going to tell you where you should start or how you should think. That's for you to do. If you really want to change what your entitlement is, you need to step outside of that entitlement and stop taking. Stop just taking. I really do so much giving with regards to this podcast. A lot of this podcast is free. Pretty much everything that we at Map It Forward do is free. To contact me and say, where should I start? That is you giving up responsibility because of your entitlement so that you can have somebody else tell you where you should be listening to shit. Now, here's the thing. It's not deliberate a lot of the time. Your entitlement isn't deliberate. When I sent James an email yesterday and told him some truths that were really hard for me to say, his response was to immediately take the video down once he had rewatched it and saw what had happened. He saw what I saw once I'd pointed it out to him. So the entitlement isn't just in the behavior. The entitlement is in the fact that you don't have to consider other people. The entitlement isn't always deliberate, and sometimes it is, but it not always is. So you are responsible for you being an open-minded thinker. Being ignorant is entitled. Being arrogant is entitled. And for my audience, because I'm not going to call specific people out when I say what I'm about to say, but I want you all to consider something. All of these people that you look to for guidance as a professional in the coffee industry, all these people that are happy to tell you exactly what you should think when it comes to roasting and when it comes to brewing and when it comes to the way you should do all of the things that you should be doing. I hear a lot of them saying a whole bunch of fucking nothing right now. They're releasing books right now. They're releasing videos right now. Not saying much about the Black Lives Matter movement. They're not telling you much about what their stance is on humanity right now. They are hoping that what's going to happen is they're going to shut the fuck up and they're going to use some excuse like, oh, I'm just listening right now. And they're going to hope that once all of this goes away, and it will go away from the media at some point, the issues won't go away, but the media will look for the next thing, the second wave of COVID. And then what they're going to do is they're going to slip right back into your newsfeed and start posting tips of the day and all of this kind of stuff. It's up to you to decide who you're going to give your attention to. It's up to you to decide who you take counsel from. If people cannot step forward and talk about the difficult shit when it needs to be spoken about, do they deserve your attention when they won't? Do these businesses who are run by people who really want you to see their glitzy and glamoury is not really a word, I apologize for that, but I like it. Their glitzy and glamoury brand. And they're happy for you to follow them like little sheeple. But when shit matters and we need to have a conversation about where people stand on certain issues, we don't need to dox people. We don't need to shame people. And we're going to talk about shame in a second. We don't need to be doing that. But what we do need to be doing is these companies, these big companies and these big influencers who command your attention because of their sense of entitlement. Now is the time to ask yourself, what are they saying right now? What is their silence saying right now? Are they virtue signaling and we'll talk about what virtue signaling is in a second, but are they just signaling you with a post, either a black tile or nothing, or a statement that says, hey, we're going to give a check to these certain people? Any company that is genuinely a leader right now is going to at least come out and say something as watered down as, we need to figure out this shit. They're at least going to acknowledge that there's a problem, and they're going to talk openly about how that exists in their company, or how lily white their company is, how they're going to approach anything about it. And I want to put a call out, an invitation to these people who have gone deathly silent to avoid all of the shit that's going on online right now because they don't want to be a target. I want to invite those people who are influencers and those companies that are influencers and ask them to join the conversation. I'd like for them to start talking about, because a lot of these people are great people that are trying to avoid getting into conflict. They're trying to avoid a difficult conversation. Well, you're happy to be in the limelight when it's easy, but you're not happy to be in the limelight when serious shit is being talked about. Why? And now, while I'm not going to mention names, I am going to say, you, the audience, the people who are listening to this, it is your responsibility to hold yourself accountable to whose information you align yourself with, and go from there. So now let's talk about virtue signaling. What is virtue signaling? Virtue signaling is this thing that seems to be really popular thanks to social media, where you'll do something to give someone a clue of what your virtues are, what you stand for. And you'll post a picture, or you'll put something in your profile bio, or you'll wear a pin, or X, Y, Z, to let other people in your group know that you're a part of that group. Virtue signaling is directly tied to group thinking. Group thinking is the complete opposite of open-mindedness. It's the complete opposite of independent thinking. This program, this show, this brand is an advocate for thinking for yourself, going out there, finding information, and being a critical thinker. So it doesn't surprise me that the people who attacked me online on the weekend for no fucking reason aren't a part of my actual audience. It became very clear very quickly when they were telling me, you need to check your white privilege, build a relationship with your white fragility, you're an embarrassment to the industry, X, Y, and it went on and on and on. Hundreds and hundreds of messages and comments and posts and all of this kind of shit. When you take a screenshot and say, let's bring Map It Forward down, that is an action of virtue signaling. You are trying to show other people that you are a part of a group, and you're calling your people to recognize that you are one of them. Oh, why are people doing this? They're doing this because our industry is made of people who are a certain kind of insecure. And the kind of insecure that is, from my observation, every country I go to, I see the same fucking thing. We're an industry that's built of people who have experienced a lot of dysfunction in their life at varying degrees. It's not 100% of people, but it's a big proportion of those people. And what happens, thanks to social media, a lot of people are lonely. A lot of people feel isolated. Virtue signaling helps people feel like they belong somewhere. And I get it. I understand that. But what are you achieving by virtue signaling other people to attack people that you don't know a fucking thing about? This doesn't just happen with people who are part of the left movement. When people tattoo a Nazi swastika on their arm, that's virtue signaling. They're telling people, I'm a part of this club, come be with me. When you're saying things to other people like, don't worry, this will all just disappear, just let's stay quiet, don't say anything. When you're going out there and your silence is saying volumes, you are virtue signaling. So you might be saying, well, then what the fuck can you say that isn't virtue signaling? Say something where you're thinking for yourself. Talk about, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm exploring. This is how I'm understanding this situation. Talk about the things that you are using to learn about right now. Some things that I did to start learning about this issue 4 years ago, I spoke about earlier in this podcast. Do the same thing. You can share content and talk about what you learned from it. That's not virtue signaling. But bullying, which is the next thing we're going to talk about, is a direct result of virtue signaling. And this industry is rife with bullying. And that stems from the insecurity that exists in our industry. What happens when you virtue signal is that the intent is to shame the recipient of what ends up eventuating into the bullying. There is a lot of research out there, primarily done by Dr. Brené Brown, that is focused on what happens as a consequence of shame. And shame is the lowest possible emotion a human can feel. When people say to you, you should be ashamed of yourself, or when you feel shame, it is an emotion that you cannot get out from under. The objective, if somebody is doing something that is truly hurting other people, shaming them isn't going to get them to consider a different alternative course. It's going to bury them in a hole. And so if your behavior towards somebody is, let's just shame the shit out of them, you've just cut off the conversation. There will be no conversation. There will be no opportunity for debate or discourse or exploration or influencing each other or nuance or any of the stuff that is a catalyst for change. That is a catalyst for growth. None of that exists when you're trying to shame people. And there is so much research out there on this. If you don't agree, if you don't believe what I'm saying, just go and start looking at it. Dr. Brené Brown, Shame versus Guilt. Listen to a book or read a book called The Power of Vulnerability. We are in a really interesting moment in our industry, where people who don't know how to think for themselves and don't know how to go on the journey of removing themselves from group thinking are jumping on the bandwagon and posting virtue signal pictures of a group of people and a clown face put over the top of another person so that they can tell the world, yeah, I don't like this person too. And if you're the person that did that, you should really be considering what your role is as a member of the community. We are tearing people down now. We are shaming them into submission. We are not giving people the opportunity to come out from under the entitlement that they have been afforded by the positions that they've held. These are not people who have deliberately been active in harming people. And as an industry, we are going to lose a bunch of people who just no longer want to put up with this shit. I was seriously considering over this weekend, perhaps I should just leave the coffee industry. After almost 20 years of dealing with this bullshit, perhaps it's just not for me. But you know what? I want to be an active part of fixing this problem. This podcast was developed to be an active part of fixing this fucking problem. The implications of bullying and shaming people online is extensive. When you bully people and shame them, you back them into a corner that they can no longer function from. If you engage in discourse, reasonable discourse. I had somebody send me a message saying it was a 20-something-year-old who sent me a message asking if I would like her to coach me about my white fragility. Okay. Now listen. I appreciate that this person didn't make that statement publicly and thought that it would be the more mature thing to send me a private message. But that's such an unreasonable comment to make to somebody when you don't know fucking anything about their content. First of all, I'm not white. You're making assumptions based on my skin color, which is the exact problem of what's going on right now. You are virtue signaling. You are letting people know. I know why you're sending me that message, so that you can screenshot what my response is going to be and post it on social media. If you're going to engage in discourse, please do it in a way that's genuine. Understand the person who you're engaging in discourse with. And don't have the agenda of I have to be right. When somebody contacted me yesterday, we had a conversation, a friend of mine, a really dear friend. We were talking about how it's not okay. None of the police deaths of black men that just seem to be shot without no due process or choked with no due process, none of it's okay. And then I got her, but he was a drug addict, speaking specifically about George Floyd. And so if I approach that discussion needing to prove him wrong or needing to prove me right, that's not a discussion. That's me then needing to be right and needing him to be wrong. So let's just approach these discussions open-mindedly. Let's approach these discussions listening to each other. Let's approach these discussions with the intention of not needing to win anything other than listening to each other. Right now, the very clear thing, the very, very clear objective is we've got to get rid of racism. We've got to get rid of this sense of entitlement that so many people in our industry have. They're entitled to shame people. Why? Well, just because. Because I'm not the person who's on the receiving end of the shame. So it's fine. I'm entitled to do that. You're not entitled to do that. So I've gone on for too long. I hope this makes some dent at all with the way that people are thinking about this issue. Because what is happening out there on social media right now in our industry is a mess. It's a mess. And unfortunately, the things that need to happen are getting drowned out by the bloodbath. And while people are wasting time doxing, for anyone who doesn't know what doxing is, it's going out there and releasing the personal details of people who you don't agree with. So while people are going out there and doxing and shaming people for some of the most irrelevant shit in the world, and okay, what do I mean by irrelevant shit? I posted something from an activist by the name of Sean King. There are members in the coffee community who don't like Sean King. There are members in the coffee community who do like Sean King. And the research that I did about Sean King presented me with two perspectives. A perspective of a group of people who don't like him and a perspective of a group of people who do like him. I'm left to make up my own mind. So I post some information about Sean King, and that's when the problem started. Let's not pay attention to the actual quality of the content that was being posted. No, we're going to waste our time by destroying Lee and Map It Forward because she posted content from Sean King. Let's not look at any of the other content Lee's posted. Let's not consider that what the quality was really fucking good. No. A whole movement was created online. Let's bring Mapper Forward down because Lee posted a piece of content from Sean King. Is that really worth taking the attention from the Black Lives Matter movement in order to bring me down? I shouldn't be a part of the story right now. I shouldn't be what you're talking about right now. You shouldn't be formulating movements to bring people down because they posted something from somebody else. That's not important right now. What's important right now is getting justice for the Black Lives Matter movement. I am irrelevant right now. So I just want us to think more about how we're using the voice that we have and how we're using the thinking power that we have. Who are we engaging in conversation? How are we elevating the discussion within ourselves by the content that we're consuming? And how are we elevating the discussion as an industry? And for those of you, if you are listening to this, that did try to take me down, bravo. You did take my attention away for a certain period of time. But you also gave me the opportunity to refocus with greater intensity on what my purpose is in this industry. It's to encourage more people to think for themselves and to be open-minded. And I am recharged with that intention in ways that I've never been before. And so I want to remind everyone we're still in the middle of a fucking pandemic. And we should be prepared that what is happening right now is creating a potential second wave. So we have 3 conversations coming up on the podcast over the next 3 weeks that are directly focused on the value chain and what's going on at Origin. And we'll make announcements about those soon. To everyone who's been really supportive and who has engaged me and, either offered me encouragement or shared their stories with me about how they're finding this really challenging. Thank you. I appreciate your support. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everyone. Please be kind to each other and to yourselves. Have an amazing rest of your day.